My grandmother left a $2 million fortune, but only to the one who unlocks a safe that doesn't exist. The day we buried Grandma Sylvia, the lawyer handed each of us a sealed envelope. No hugs, no long-winded reading of a will, just cold manila and a nod. Inside mine, a single line typed on thick paper. You want the truth? Find the safe. No key, no combination, no instructions. Just that. My name's Daniel, and for most of my life, I was the quiet one in the family. Not the golden child like my cousin Marcus, or the sainted mother of three like my sister Rachel. I was the guy who never quite fit in at Sunday brunch, who moved 2 states away and stopped returning calls. But I came back when Sylvia died. Not because I wanted anything, not even for closure. Just out of guilt, I guess. Because she raised me. Because I owed her that much. She didn't die in a hospital. She died right in that old, creaking Victorian she refused to leave. The one with the slanted porch and the cracked window above the parlor. I remember, as a kid, I was always scared of that window. Something about how it seemed to watch you. The whole family gathered for the service. Afterward, we drifted back to the house like vultures, circling the carcass. The will had already been processed. Nothing typical about it. No breakdown of who got what. Just a legally binding note. All assets and holdings are held in trust. The one who opens the safe shall inherit everything. Everyone assumed it was metaphorical. That Sylvia, in her last days, had gone a little senile. That maybe safe was symbolic. Closure. Forgiveness. Whatever. But then Marcus found the floor plans. He was rummaging through a drawer in the study, probably looking for antique jewelry or stock certificates. He pulled out a rolled-up blueprint. The original design of the house, back when it was built in 1894. There, he said, tapping a section of the upstairs hallway with a smirk. That wall shouldn't exist. We all crowded around like moths to a flame. The blueprint clearly showed a narrow storage room between the linen closet and the back staircase. But in the house itself, just solid wall. We tore through the upstairs that night, ripping down wallpaper, knocking on panels for hollow sounds. It was pathetic, like kids playing pirates. But something about it felt right. Like Sylvia had wanted this. Like she had planned it. The next day, a contractor arrived. Not hired by us. Sent anonymously. Middle-aged guy, quiet, efficient. Said he was told to assist with structural verification. Within 20 minutes, he confirmed it. There was a void space behind the wall. Narrow, tall, sealed off. Marcus went wild. He wanted to break through right away. But the contractor shook his head. This wall was reinforced. Concrete behind the paneling. Not something you chip at with a hammer. Rachel, ever the voice of reason, said we should vote on what to do. But no one really listened. Sylvia hadn't left instructions, just a puzzle. And when people smell 7 figures, civility goes out the window. That night, I stayed in the house. Slept in my childhood room. The walls were still lined with those faded Moon and Star wallpapers she put up for me when I was 8. I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I wandered. The house was creaking, whispering to itself like it used to. I passed the linen closet. Stopped. Something felt wrong. Or maybe right. The air was colder. Still. And then I saw it. One of the baseboards below the linen shelf was off-kilter. Tiny, but not flush. Like it had been removed recently. I dropped to my knees. Pulled gently. It slid out like a drawer. Inside was a folded piece of yellowed paper. In Sylvia's handwriting, all caps. If you found this, then you're on the right path. But the safe isn't what you think. Look beneath the stairwell. Do not trust them. Them. I didn't need a family tree to know who she meant. I stuffed the note into my pocket and stood. The creaking above me suddenly stopped. Someone else was awake. And I had no idea who had sent that contractor. Or what they really knew. The next morning, the house felt different. Stiller. Like it was holding its breath. Rachel made eggs. Marcus barked orders. Ellie, our cousin, sat in the corner scrolling her phone with the kind of fury only someone obsessed with control could manage. But none of them knew what I had tucked into my pocket. Sylvia's note burned against my thigh like a secret loaded with TNT. Beneath the stairwell, she said. That wasn't some attic game. That was a command. The problem was, they were watching now. Not openly, but you could feel it. The tension in the room. The silence when I stood up to get coffee. The sideways glances. Everyone had the same thought. Be the first. I waited till late afternoon when the others drifted into their respective corners of the house. I made myself scarce. Pretended I was going to the backyard to clear my head. Instead, I doubled back through the basement entrance. The stairwell was old, hand-carved wood with grooves worn down by generations of foot traffic. But beneath it was nothing but a boarded-up crawl space. At least, that's how it looked. I pulled out my phone and used the flashlight to scan the floor. Dust, cobwebs, nothing dramatic, until I spotted a single screw in the corner of one board that didn't match the rest. Silver. Clean. New. I crouched, heart hammering. With my keys, I pried it up. The board groaned, like it hadn't been touched in decades. Underneath, a steel box. No lock, just a latch. I opened it. Inside were photos. Dozens. All black and white. Some cracked and curling at the edges. They were all of Sylvia. But younger. Maybe 20s, maybe 30s. Standing in front of buildings I didn't recognize. Always the same look on her face. Not smiling, but defiant. Like she knew something no one else did. Taped to the bottom was a folded blueprint. Not of the house. Of the lake house in Vermont. And in red ink, scribbled across it. The safe was never in this house. They'll rip this place apart and find nothing. Go alone. Bring no one. There's a key in the music box. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I felt it. That itch at the back of my neck. Like I was being watched. I looked up, and there, at the top of the basement stairs, stood Ellie. Silent. Still. Her face blank. Looking for rats? She asked, voice light. I stood slowly, closing the box, sliding the board back in place. Old photo albums, I said. Didn't want them to get water damaged. She didn't move. Just tilted her head slightly. You know, she said, walking away. Grandma used to say that secrets make people disappear. That night, I couldn't sleep. I waited until everyone else had gone to bed. Then I crept into the parlor. The music box had always been there, sitting untouched on the old upright piano. I lifted the lid slowly. Inside, a single brass key, resting where the dancer used to spin. I held it up to the light. It wasn't just old, it was engraved. On the stem, a number, 4217. I pocketed it. And by sunrise, I was already packing a bag. The lake house wasn't just another property. It was the first place Sylvia took me after the fire. And I was starting to think it wasn't just for fresh air and recovery. It was for safekeeping. By the time I reached the lake house, I hadn't slept in 24 hours. But I wasn't tired. I was wired. The drive up was foggy, the kind of weather that makes even road signs look like ghosts. I hadn't been here in 15 years. But the house looked exactly the same. 2 stories, painted white once, now gray with time, shutters that never shut, and that twisted weather vane shaped like a crow that used to terrify me as a kid. The front door creaked open like it remembered me. The air smelled like cedar, dust, and something faintly sweet, like old perfume. Sylvia never let anyone else clean the lake house. She called it her sanctuary. Now it was mine. I dropped my bag and headed straight for the parlor. There it was. The piano. Same make as the one back home. Same old sheet music still open to her favorite, Claire de Lune. She used to hum it when she thought no one was listening. I lifted the fallboard. Inside the key cover, a tiny metal plate, engraved with a number. I pulled out the brass key. It fit, but the lock wasn't for the piano. It was for something deeper. That's when I remembered the cellar. When I was 10, Sylvia caught me sneaking down there after dark. She grabbed me by the wrist, tighter than she ever had, and said, "We don't go where things are meant to stay buried." I thought she meant spiders. Now, I wasn't so sure. I crept to the cellar door. The handle stuck, then gave with a pop that echoed through the house like a gunshot. I froze. Waited. Nothing. The stairs groaned under my weight. At the bottom, a concrete floor, stone walls, a rusted shelf lined with jars of God knows what. But at the far end, a locked cabinet. Steel. Bolted to the foundation. I walked over, hands trembling. Inserted the key. It turned. The door swung open. Inside was a smaller safe. Real, tangible, matte black, heavy duty. And taped across the front, one line in Sylvia's handwriting. "You found it. But are you the one who deserves it?" There was no keyhole. Just a keypad. I stepped back, pulse thundering. What was the code? A birthday? A date? Then I remembered her handwriting again, back in that first note. "The safe isn't what you think." I closed my eyes. I typed it in. The keypad blinked. Denied. Again. Denied. I cursed. Punched the wall. Dust rained from above. That's when I heard the noise upstairs. Floorboards. Footsteps. I wasn't alone. I killed the light, moved fast and silent back up the stairs. At the top, I waited, pressing my ear to the wood. Nothing now, but I knew what I heard. I crept down the hallway, toward the guest room. Door cracked open. Rachel. She stood there, flashlight in hand, rifling through Sylvia's old sewing cabinet. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She jumped, nearly dropped the flashlight. "Jesus, Daniel," she hissed. "You scared the hell out of me. How did you find this place?" She held up her phone. "Ellie pinged your location. Said she was worried about you. So I tracked it." I stared at her. "Ellie sent you?" Rachel looked down. "She wanted to come herself. I volunteered. Figured someone needed to keep you from doing anything stupid." I felt the weight of Sylvia's blueprint in my jacket. I stepped closer. "Why were you going through that drawer?" She didn't answer right away. "Look," she said, softening. "If you found something, just say it. We can share it. No one has to know." The word share felt like poison in my mouth. "There is no sharing," I said. "Not with vultures." Her face changed. "Cold. Then I guess you better watch your back. Because you're not the only one Sylvia tested." And that's when I realized. Everyone else got more than just a line in an envelope. They got pieces, too. Clues. Maybe even instructions. And I was walking into a game I didn't understand. One where losing didn't just mean walking away empty-handed. It meant being erased. Rachel didn't say another word that night. She stormed out of the guest room, and I didn't follow. Let her think she had the upper hand. Let her guess what I really knew. It was better that way. I waited until I heard her door shut, then waited another hour. Just in case. The whole time, I sat on the floor of the hallway, staring at the old wallpaper. Faded hydrangeas, the same ones that lined the walls when I was a kid. Sylvia always said wallpaper was like memory. Layered. Peeling. Sometimes rotten underneath. When I was sure the coast was clear, I went back down to the cellar. The safe still sat there like a question I couldn't answer. But something Rachel said kept rattling in my head. That I wasn't the only one being tested. Sylvia wouldn't have left it to chance. Not with this kind of money. Not with our family. She had always believed in one thing. Legacy had to be earned. So maybe the code wasn't about her. Maybe it was about me. I stepped forward again. Looked at the keypad. For digits. I tried my birthday. Denied. Tried the year I moved away. Denied. Tried the year of the fire. Denied. Then I paused. Thought back to when I was 12, the second fire. I'd always believed it was an accident. But Sylvia never flinched when the fire marshal blamed faulty wiring. She just said, "Some things burn, so we don't have to carry them anymore." I stared at the keypad. Entered, 1989. Click. The safe hissed open. Inside, nothing flashy. No stacks of bills. No gold bars. Just a leather-bound journal. A flash drive. And an envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, a single Polaroid. Me and Sylvia. I was maybe 6. Sitting on her lap in front of the fireplace. She was smiling. On the back, written in her scrawl. "If you're reading this, you saw through the smoke. Good. You're ready now." I opened the journal. Page after page, her handwriting. It wasn't just a diary. It was a ledger. Of secrets. Family secrets. Dates. Transactions. Names I hadn't heard since childhood. She had written down everything. The real reason for the fires. The offshore accounts. The hidden deals my uncles made to bankrupt my grandfather. The way Rachel and Marcus tried to have Sylvia committed 5 years ago. Everything. I clutched it to my chest, heart racing. That's when I heard it. Rachel. On the phone. Upstairs. Voice sharp. Low, furious. "He found something. I don't know what yet. But he's hiding it." A pause. "No. I'll take care of it. He's not walking out of here with that journal." My stomach turned to ice. This wasn't a treasure hunt anymore. This was survival. I grabbed the flash drive, stuffed the journal and envelope into my coat, and killed the light. I moved through the house like a shadow. Years of muscle memory guided me around the creaks in the floor, the loose board in the den, the squeaky hinge by the back door. My car was parked by the edge of the trees. I made it 5 steps before the porch light snapped on. Rachel stood there, blocking my exit. "What did you take, Daniel?" I didn't answer. She stepped closer, hand in her coat pocket. "You think you're the only one who deserves it? You think you're the only one she loved?" I looked her dead in the eyes. She didn't leave this for who she loved. She left it for who could carry the weight. Her face twisted. Then she lunged. And I ran. Through the trees. Through the fog. Sylvia's voice echoing in my head. Some truths don't get buried. They dig themselves up when they're ready. And now I knew. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was about everything she never said aloud. Everything she wanted someone to finally face. I didn't stop running until I hit the road. Branches clawed at my coat. Rocks tore through my shoes. Every step felt louder than the last, but I didn't dare look back. I didn't need to. I knew Rachel wasn't far behind. I made it to the car, threw the journal onto the passenger seat, and shoved the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered. Once. Twice. Then roared to life. I peeled out so hard gravel sprayed into the trees. The rearview mirror caught nothing but fog. No headlights. No figures. Just emptiness. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not even close. I drove 2 towns over before I stopped. An all-night diner lit up the corner like a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I parked in the back, grabbed the journal, and slipped into a booth. The waitress gave me a tired smile and poured me coffee without asking. I didn't even touch it. I opened Sylvia's journal again. She hadn't just kept records. She'd mapped out an entire family conspiracy. My grandfather hadn't died peacefully in his sleep like I'd been told. He'd overdosed. A mercy overdose, she wrote. Administered by someone he trusted, because the cancer had eaten through his spine and he couldn't take the pain anymore. She never named the person, just left an initial, R. There were letters tucked into the back, copies of emails, bank transfers, deeds. Sylvia had spent the last decade documenting everything in silence. Preparing. For me? Why me? Then I remembered the fire. The second one. She pulled me out herself. Not the firefighters. Not my mother. Sylvia. She'd told them I wasn't even in the house. But I had been. In the attic. Where she told me not to go. Where she told me never to touch the red trunk. She never explained why. Until now. In the very last pages of the journal, taped to the inside cover, was a letter. Handwritten. Addressed to me. Daniel. If you're reading this, you already know too much. I'm sorry for that. I wanted to protect you from it. But I also knew someday, someone had to face it. They'll come for you now. All of them. Not just Rachel. Not just Marcus. There are people outside the family who had their hands in this. People who used us. People who used me. But you, Daniel, you disappeared. You escaped the pull. That's why I chose you. Not because you're smarter or better, but because you know how to run without leaving footprints. Take the journal to the post office in Millersburg. Ask for box 112. Inside will be instructions. Follow them exactly. Don't trust anyone, even if they use my name. Especially if they use my name. And Daniel, don't stop. Not until you finish what I couldn't. Love always. Sylvia. I folded the letter with shaking hands. The waitress topped off my coffee. You all right, hon? She asked. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. Just remembering something that wasn't mine to remember. She smiled, walked off. I stared at the journal like it was radioactive. Then I opened my phone. Searched for Millersburg, 80 miles east. I grabbed my coat. But as I stepped out of the diner, I froze. My car door was open, and the passenger seat was empty. The journal was gone. Someone had followed me, and now they had everything. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I spun around, scanned the parking lot. Nothing. Just a strip of cracked asphalt, 2 other cars, and the neon diner sign flickering behind me like it had seen this all before. The journal was gone, and someone had been close enough to take it without making a sound. I walked toward the road, fast. Looked both ways. No taillights. No shadows. No tire tracks. Whoever it was, they were good. They knew how to vanish. Which meant this wasn't random. It wasn't just Rachel or Marcus trying to beat me to the punch. This was bigger. I got back into the car, slammed the door shut, and stared at the steering wheel like it might offer answers. The flash drive. I still had it. It was in my coat pocket. A tiny, metallic thing that now felt like the last match in a blackout. I drove. Not toward Millersburg. Not yet. First, I needed eyes. A place no one knew. Somewhere I could plug this in and see what Sylvia had really been hiding. I ended up in a 24-hour library in a town so small it barely had a name. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions, just nodded and gestured toward the computer terminals. I slid into a booth, hands still shaking, and plugged in the drive. One folder, labeled, for Daniel only. I clicked it open. There were 4 video files. No titles, just timestamps. The first was dated 5 years ago. The last, just 3 months before she died. I clicked the first one. The screen flickered to life. Sylvia, sitting in the lake house parlor. She looked tired, older than I remembered, but sharp. Her eyes locked onto the camera like she was staring through it. "If you're watching this," she began, "then I'm dead. Let's get that out of the way." She took a breath. "There are things this family never wanted to say aloud. Things I let happen. Things I regret." She talked about the money, not the inheritance, but the origin. The way our family business had been used as a laundering front in the late 80s. Offshore deals. Shell companies. A man named Victor Halden, not family, but tied to us like rot to wood. "Victor used us," she said. "Used our name, our trust. And in the end, I helped him. Not because I wanted to, but because I was scared." She looked down, voice softening. "And because he knew about your grandfather. About what I did to stop his pain." My throat tightened. She had done it. She had ended his suffering. "Victor blackmailed me for 10 years, she continued. "Used that leverage to gut the family business. He left behind just enough for the rest of them to squabble over. And when I tried to cut him out, that's when the fire started." I froze. The first fire was a warning. The second was meant to kill me. Only it didn't. The second fire, the one where she pulled me from the attic. "I told the police you weren't there. Lied to keep you out of it. Because if Victor found out you were still alive." She trailed off. "You were never supposed to be part of this. But now you have to be. Because if you don't finish this, if you don't expose them, they'll keep going. They'll find someone else. Maybe one of your cousins. Maybe their kids. And the cycle will start all over again." She reached forward. Click. The video ended. I sat there, hands gripping the edge of the desk. Victor Halden. That name. It felt like a key I didn't know how to turn. I copied the video files to the desktop. Printed out screen captures. Everything. And as I was about to eject the drive, an alert popped up. "Remote access attempted." My blood ran cold. They were tracking the drive. I yanked it out. Grabbed the papers. Bolted for the door. Outside, the librarian stood by the window, watching me. Her face blank. I got into the car. Locked the doors. Peeled out. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text message. "We warned her not to drag you in. She didn't listen. Now it's your turn." This wasn't about inheritance anymore. This was war. I threw the burner phone out the window 2 miles down the road. It clattered against the asphalt and vanished into the dark. Whoever sent that message had more reach than I thought. Remote access, surveillance, threats. This wasn't some angry relative clinging to family pride. This was organized, trained, and they weren't bluffing. I made it to Millersburg just after 4 a.m. Main Street was dead silent. A single gas station blinked a weak fluorescent hum across the road. The post office sat at the corner, squat and brick and tucked under a canopy of fog. Box 112. Sylvia's last move. The lobby was open. Old school, with brass mailboxes and a key code entry system. I scanned the wall. There it was. Box 112. I reached into my coat. Found the brass key again, still warm from the run. It turned. Inside, a single folded envelope. Thick. Unmarked. I took it out and left fast. Back in the car, I locked the doors before I opened it. Inside was a passport, fake. New name, new birth date, new everything. A debit card. And a note. "If you're reading this, then you're alive. Good. You've got one shot. Use the card once. Only once. In Hartford. 3rd and Pike. That'll signal the rest. They'll meet you." No signature. No explanation. Just a clean identity and a single-use card. And that's when it hit me. Sylvia hadn't just planned for me to find the truth. She'd planned for me to vanish. I drove north. Rain started around dawn. Gentle at first, then harder, until the road blurred beneath my headlights. I stopped for gas outside Hartford, used cash, changed coats, changed hats. At 3rd and Pike, there was a coffee shop. I went inside, ordered something hot just to look normal. Sat near the back. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked to the ATM beside the door. Swiped the debit card. Withdrawn, $20. Transaction complete. That was it. I walked out. Stood in the rain. Waited. 30 minutes passed. Then a black SUV pulled up. Tinted windows. No plates. The rear window rolled down. A woman looked out. Maybe early 60s. Sharp eyes, gray hair pulled into a bun. Not friendly, not hostile. Just controlled. "You Daniel?" she asked. I nodded slowly. She opened the door. "Get in. We don't have long." I slid inside. The SUV took off. She passed me a file. Inside were photos, documents, transcripts. Victor Halden. Real name, Victor Haldenik. Born in Yugoslavia. CIA asset turned corporate ghost. Shell companies across 3 continents. Connections to political figures, private militias, offshore banks. Disappeared in 2006. Except he hadn't. He'd embedded himself in families like ours. Wealthy, isolated, easy to manipulate. Sylvia had been one of dozens. We were watching your grandmother for years, the woman said. But she wouldn't come in. Said she had to fix it her way. Why me? I asked. She didn't trust your family. Thought they were compromised. But you left. You stayed clean. I looked out the window. The rain had stopped. But the clouds were still thick. Like they were waiting. So what now? I asked. She handed me a tablet. Now you decide. There's enough in this file to bring Halden down. If he's still alive. But it'll expose your whole family. Names. Dates. Every deal. And if I don't, then someone else will inherit the mess. Your niece. Your nephew. Their kids. The cycle goes on. I stared at the tablet. Felt the weight of Sylvia's words all over again. Don't stop. Not until you finish what I couldn't. I took a breath and tapped the screen. Upload, beginning. There was no going back. The upload took 63 seconds. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. Every percentage point a countdown. I couldn't stop. Once the data was out, it wasn't mine anymore. It was public, and I knew what that meant. The woman beside me didn't flinch, didn't celebrate, just nodded once and tapped her earpiece. He confirmed. Full release. We drove in silence after that. They dropped me at a safe house on the edge of a town I'd never heard of. 2 rooms, stocked fridge, burner phone on the table. Don't call anyone, she said. Not yet. Stay dark for 72 hours. We'll contact you. Then she was gone. Just like that. I didn't sleep. I paced. I watched the news. By that night, it had already started. Headlines: corporate espionage ring exposed. Hidden accounts linked to former Cold War operative. They didn't name Halden. Not yet. But the details were there. The shell companies. The manipulated families. The Everly Foundation. My family. Then the arrests began. Marcus. My uncle Terrence. A former CFO who used to send me birthday cards with cash inside. All paraded in handcuffs in grainy security footage like ghosts who'd finally been caught in daylight. But Rachel? Rachel vanished. No arrest. No trail. Just gone. That terrified me more than anything. Because Rachel was always the type to have a backup plan. On the second day, the woman called. It worked, she said. We'll keep you protected. But you need to disappear for a while. Really disappear. What about the rest of the family? The ones who didn't know? That's not your job anymore. You did yours. I stared out the window at nothing. And Halden? Still in the wind. But not for long. She paused. Your grandmother wanted you to know something. Before she died, she gave us a message. Said to pass it on only if you saw this through. My throat tightened. What message? She read it aloud. Tell him I wasn't strong when it mattered most. But he was. And I'm proud of him. That broke me. Not the danger. Not the betrayal. Not even the exile. That. Because for all her riddles, Sylvia had never once said she was proud of me. And now, in the end, when everything burned, I finally heard it. I live quietly now. A new name. A new town. I teach music at a community center for kids who've already seen too much. Sometimes I still flinch when I hear old piano melodies in grocery stores. Sometimes I still see Rachel's silhouette in passing headlights. But most days I breathe. I keep the flash drive in a drawer. And the Polaroid of me and Sylvia framed on a shelf. Because even when the truth scorches everything, some memories still deserve to survive. Some safes can't be cracked. Some have to be opened from the inside. I didn't stop driving until the highway bled into pines and Tulane silence. Somewhere in the rear view, Rachel was either catching up or disappearing. And I couldn't decide which scared me more. The journal sat beside me, every bump in the road vibrating through it like a ticking bomb. Sylvia's words still echoed in my head. If you're reading this, you saw through the smoke. Good. You're ready now. I wasn't. But I had no choice. I stopped at a gas station outside Brenton County, threw a hoodie over my head, and paid cash for a burner phone, a map, and a stale egg sandwich I never planned to eat. Then I found a motel so forgettable I had to circle back twice just to spot the sign. That was the point. I locked the door, checked the windows, pulled the blinds, laid the journal on the desk, and opened to the first page. Every line was a secret. Every date, a betrayal. She hadn't just recorded family drama. She had mapped an empire of manipulation. Shell accounts, payoffs, threats disguised as donations. A name popped up over and over, V.H., until it stopped being a question and started feeling like a warning. Then I reached the middle. 2 pages glued together. Deliberately, sloppily, I slid a blade through the seam and peeled them apart. Inside, a folded receipt. Millersburg Post Office. Box 112. Prepaid drop. Issued 4 days before her death. That wasn't a relic. That was a breadcrumb. My pulse spiked. Sylvia had set up a final message. Maybe a way out. Maybe a trap. But either way, I had to follow it. I barely slept. Just stared at the shadows on the ceiling until they started whispering shapes I didn't want to name. At sunrise, I packed up and hit the road again. Millersburg was small. The kind of town where everyone noticed the car that didn't belong. I parked 3 blocks from the post office and walked in with the kind of fake confidence that made people not ask questions. Box 112 was low, right above the floor. I inserted the key from the music box. It turned smoothly. Inside was a manila envelope. No name. Just a strip of masking tape with one word written in Sylvia's scrawl. Activate. Back in the car, I slid it open. There was a flash drive. A printed map with 3 locations circled. A single bus ticket. And another note. Daniel, if you've made it this far, you already know the safe was never about money. It was about truth. Legacy. And who could live with both? Victor Halden is alive. Everything I gave you leads to him. But only if you're willing to be the one who finishes what I couldn't. You have one chance to expose it all. One upload. Use the drive once. Only once. Then disappear. And if you see Rachel again, run. She's not following you. She's hunting you. I stared at the drive like it might bite. Victor Halden. That name wasn't just an echo anymore. It was the center of the storm. I pulled out the map. 3 locations. One was already circled in red ink. An old public library, 20 miles away. The only note scribbled next to it said, "No cameras." I started the engine and turned toward the truth. The library was the kind that still smelled like yellowed paper and floor wax. The kind where dust didn't get cleaned, just rearranged. I ducked into the computer alcove in the back corner. No cameras. No nosy librarians. Just a half-broken fan humming like it was dying of boredom. I plugged in the flash drive. The folder opened with a click. Inside, a file labeled Eyes Only and another folder marked Proof. I opened Eyes Only. A video. Sylvia, again. Sitting straighter this time. Eyes sharper. Daniel, if you're seeing this, you're at the end of the trail. She took a breath. Halden operated through shadows, but those shadows are mapped. Every account number, every false front, every corrupted name, it's all here. The drive links to a satellite server. One click sends it to federal agencies, international investigators, and one final copy to a leak-safe journalist. But it burns the drive. Literally. One click. One chance. She looked right at the lens. Decide fast. Because if they find you before you click, they'll erase everything. She reached forward. The video went black. I hovered over the icon. My hands were shaking. Then I heard it. A creak. Floorboard. Behind me. I spun around. Rachel. Rain-soaked. Bruised lip. Eyes wild. "You don't understand what you're about to do," she said. Voice shaking but steady enough to scare me. I stood. "You followed me." "I never stopped," she said. "And neither did they." She glanced at the computer. "If you upload that, you kill more than Halden. You drag everyone down. Dad, Ellie, the people who were just pawns. I'm not responsible for them," I said. She stepped closer. "You think Sylvia was noble? She was complicit. Until it turned on her. This isn't justice. It's vengeance. You want that on your conscience?" I didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. But that wasn't the point. I reached for the mouse. She moved. So did I. We collided. The chair crashed. Her hand grabbed my coat, the other clawing for the flash drive. "Don't," she shouted. I slammed my shoulder into her. She went down hard. Hit the carpet with a groan. I clicked. Upload, 1%. She scrambled to her feet. Lunged again. I shoved the chair into her path. 10%. "Daniel, please," she gasped. "You don't know what comes next." "Yes, I do," I said. 20%. Sirens. Somewhere outside. Her eyes widened. They're not coming for me, she said. They're coming for you. I didn't stop the upload. 40%. She backed away, disappeared down the hallway. I stayed, watched. 63%. I took a breath. 81%. Police lights flashed outside. 95%. The screen flickered. Then, upload complete. The flash drive hissed. A curl of smoke rose from the port. It melted in place. I stood, walked out the back door. No one followed. 3 days later, the world cracked open. Headlines: billion-dollar laundering web exposed. Private networks, public fallout. Holden's name was everywhere. So was Sylvia's. Rachel's was not. I don't know where she went. Maybe she ran. Maybe she finally found silence. But I know this: the weight is gone. Not all of it. Not forever. But enough. I live off the grid now. A cabin. A dog. A piano with missing keys and enough creaks in the wood to remind me I'm still alive. I frame the Polaroid. And every now and then, when the world's quiet, I play Claire de Lune. Not for Sylvia. For me. Because the safe wasn't just real. It was mine to open. And I did.